أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المطهرين المكرمين. قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم وهو أحسن القائلين وأصدق الصادقين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم المؤمنون والمؤمنات بعضهم أولياء بعض. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the purification of the souls, the enlightenment of the hearts, the acceptance of the deeds, and for the hastening of the reappearance of Baqiyatullah al-A'zam Ruhi wa Arwahul Alameen lahu al-Fida, enlighten your souls and the atmosphere with the recitation of salawat upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. My respected sisters, brothers, elders, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. One of the most contentious issues in Islamic history is the position of the Sahaba, the companions of the Holy Prophet Rasul al-A'zam wa Nabi al-Akram Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. A matter that's been discussed and analyzed for hundreds of years. The position of the Sahaba within the school of Ahl al-Bayt differs when it comes to their position within the school of Sahaba, also known as Ahl al-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah, in the idea that their analysis or their life, their definition, their status is a matter of dispute and discussion. Yet one area that's interesting in this is the female companions of the Prophet of Islam. If I was today to ask those here to give me names of Sahaba of the Holy Prophet that were women, that were female, other than the greats that we, of course, know and revere and respect, Sayyidatun Nisa, peace and blessings be upon her, the beloved daughter of the Holy Prophet, Fatima salamullahi alayha, Sayyidah Khadija salamullahi alayha. You've got those examples of these ladies which are very well known. If I was to ask anyone, give me names of Sahaba of the Prophet who were female, what names would you be able to give me? Salama, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayha, is also another revered individual, respected by the school of Ahl al-Bayt, honored because she stood on the principle of the support towards the Ahl al-Bayt alayhum as-salam. She was righteous, she did not deviate, and without a doubt, she's somebody that we consider as a role model. Who else? Habiba is another wife of the Holy Prophet. She is the daughter of Abu Sufyan. She's the daughter of Abu Sufyan. And without a doubt, these wives of the Prophet have their own discussion in the idea that the school of Ahl al-Bayt looks at each and every one of them within their own merit and their legacy and teachings. We do not blanketly somehow accept the nobility of all the wives of the Prophet, neither do we condemn all the wives of the Prophet. There were some wives of Rasulullah who were righteous. There were unfortunately others that deviated from the path, caused wars, were enemies to the Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam. And so, despite them may be known as the companions of the Prophet, they did not necessarily, all of them, have this illustrious title of being righteous. When it comes to another great person that we must remember and honor as being a Sahabi, a lady companion of the Prophet of Islam, in the broadest sense, companion means that supported the Prophet, heard from him, narrated from him, is this great individual by the name of Fidda, salamullahi alayha. Most of us are aware the fact that she was a servant of Sayyidatun Nisa, peace and blessings be upon her. But before that, she was serving the Prophet of Islam, because she was owned by Khadija salamullahi alayha. And later, the Prophet of Islam would gift Fidda to Sayyida Fatima alayhi salam. But Fidda was truly outstanding in her qualities of loyalty and courage, and also her relationship with the Quran. Most of us are aware of the famous stories associated with Lady Fidda and her memorization of the Quran. Some say the last 20 years of her life, she would only speak using the Quran. How many of us have heard of this conversation that this particular individual by the name of Abdullah al-Baz was traveling in the desert? He said, I saw a lady walking by herself. I came to her, I said to her, all of a sudden, just like this, I said to her, why are you walking by yourself? Where is your family? She looked up to me and said, Salamun qawlan min Rabbir Rahim. In other words, say salam from Surah Yasin. Then I realized that she is what? She is somebody who is noble. And then I asked her, I said, where are you going? She said, سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله. I recognized that she was saying, glory be to Allah, whom of course took his servant, the Holy Prophet, on this nightly journey from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa. So immediately I realized that she's walking towards the city of Mecca. I looked at her and I said, oh lady, you speak only of the Quran. Are you a human being or are you a jinn? She looked at me and said, Ya Bani Adam, خُذُوا زِينَتَكُمْ عِنْدَ كُلِّ مَسْجِدٍ. Oh, the sons of Adam, when you come to a place of worship, make sure that you are presentable, that you're wearing good clothes. Yes? Then I immediately said, then I must help her. I was riding. Then I said to her, why don't you ride behind me? She looked at me and said, لو كان فيهما آلهة إلا الله لفسدتا. If there are two gods in this universe, everything would become corrupt. Meaning, me and you can't ride, both of us. Yes? On this particular animal. Therefore, he said, I let her ride. I continued. Then I asked her, excuse me, are you married? She looked at me and said, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تسألوا عن أشياء إن تبد لكم تسؤكم. Oh, you who believe, don't ask questions that if the answer is given to you, you'll be disappointed. Then all of a sudden we reached an area, there were tents. She immediately calls out, Ya Yahya khudh al-kitab biquwwa, suhuf Ibrahim wa Musa. Her sons come out by the name of Yahya, Ibrahim, Musa. I looked at them. I say to them, who is this lady? All this time, she's just speaking to me with the Quran. She said, this is Lady Fidda, the servant of Fatima al-Zahra, salawatullahi wa salamu alayha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Therefore, when it comes to the Sahaba of the Prophet who were of the females, this is another example. But I'd like to, the next few minutes, it's the day after Nights of Qadr, and maybe the concentration is not that great. I have chosen an easy topic where it doesn't require much effort of pondering, but more of a historical analysis of a lady that maybe most have not heard her name. But I'd like to introduce her to you tonight as a Sahabi, as a companion of the Prophet who has many lessons for you and I to learn from, and she is indeed respected by the school of Ahl al-Bayt. This lady, her name is Nusayba bint Ka'ab. Remember the name. Who? Nusayba bint Ka'ab. Now, she exists as a wonderful example of females in Islamic history, and a companion of the Prophet of Islam, and one who respected the Ahl al-Bayt and loved them. Because today, we need to delve more into the lives of these people. Why? Some of our ladies say you speak only about male role models. Yes, you speak about Sayyida Fatima, you speak about Sayyida Zainab, you speak about Sayyida Khadija, but we don't know enough of people who are female, who we could look up to. We don't need to necessarily only look up to females. In Islamic history, we can, as males, look up to females, and females look up to males, without shadow of a doubt. But for example, we have some brilliant people that served the Ahl al-Bayt that unfortunately history has been unjust, and our communities have also been unjust to them. Meaning, we haven't heard about their lives. Let me ask you, how many here have heard about this lady? Her name is Habbab al-Walibiyya. Habbab al-Walibiyya. Anyone's heard her name? This lady has an achievement no other human being has achieved in the history of mankind. She is unique. This lady, Habbaba, met 8 Imams of the Ahl al-Bayt. We have narrations in Al-Kafi and others. She came to Amir al-Mu'mineen in Kufa, salamullahi alayh. And she said to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, ma hiya alamatu imamatik? What is your sign, the sign of the fact that you are an Imam? He said, pick up that piece of rock, small pebble, give it to me. So she brings this rock. He takes his ring and he places it on the rock to the extent that it imprints on the stone, and he gives it and says, anyone who can do this is an Imam chosen by Allah. Later, after Amir al-Mu'mineen is martyred, she comes to Imam al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. When she comes to Imam al-Mujtaba, wallah, I saw the narration. Imam sees her from far. He says to her, where is the piece of rock that my father gave you? She gives him the rock. He does the same thing. She goes to Aba Abdullah. She goes to Imam Zayn al-Abidin. He's in salah. She waits for him to finish sajda. He does the same thing. Al-Baqir, Al-Sadiq, Al-Kadhim, Al-Ridha, all of them imprint their ring on this rock of Habbab al-Walibiyya. And she dies at the time of Imam al-Ridha alayhi salam, and he prays for her. And amongst all the Imams, in my humble research of her life, because there is a lecture that I gave about her, the Imam that she had the strongest connection and the one she visited to gain more knowledge from was Sayyid al-Shuhada Aba Abdullah, salamullahi alayhi. To the extent that one day Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam said, where is Habbaba? Why is she not coming? Why don't we see Habbab al-Walibiyya? They said to him, Yabna Rasulullah, she's sick. She's got these lesions, right? Skin lesions. Imam alayhi salam would pray for her and she would be cured. And she would narrate riwayat from Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Habbab al-Walibiyya was a loyal supporter of the Ahl al-Bayt, would speak the fada'il of the Ahl al-Bayt to the people and would say, I met 8 Imams. They are the proofs of Allah on this earth. I have the proof that I can show you that they're Imams of the Ahl al-Bayt alayhum salam. Another great individual that at least if you walk away tonight, you actually know her name and a bit about her life is beneficial. Her name is Nusayba bint Ka'b. Nusayba is who? Nusayba is from the Khazraj tribe. Now, the Khazraj tribe has a number of sub-denominations. She's from the Bani Mazin of the Khazraj tribe in Yathrib, later known as, of course, Madinatun Nabi. Why is she so important? Is because she was amongst the first to declare her support for the Prophet and Islam in Mecca, not in Medina. So there is what is known as Bay'atul Aqabatul Ula, when a group of people came to the Prophet when he was in Mecca during the Hajj and they pledged allegiance. Then there was another Bay'ah, the second Aqaba. This time there were 70 men and 2 women. How many? 2 females joined the 70 men in Mecca and they gave bay'ah to Rasulullah. And they said to him, Ya Rasulullah, if you come to Medina, we will support you. We will help you. We will stand alongside you. Amongst them was Nusayba. So Nusayba embraced Islam and gave her bay'ah to Rasulullah. Now it's interesting, when she saw the Prophet in Mecca and the Aqaba, why is it known as Aqabatul Ula and Thaniya? Because it happened next to the Jamarat. You know where the people pelt the shaitans? The so-called pillars of the shaitans, yes? Incidentally, people who go to Hajj, may Allah give you all tawfiq, notice how Shahr Ramadan, many of the du'as are all about, Ya Allah, irzuqni hajj baytika al-haram fi amina hadha wa fi kulli aam. Some of you may not want to go to Hajj, but you still recite the dua, isn't it? You think, I'm never going to go, but I need to recite. It's very important to have that at least positive outlook that, for example, an individual is blessed to go to the great pilgrimage. When people go to the pilgrimage, you'll see them pelting these particular pillars, representing the shaitan when he came to try to entice Ibrahim alayhi salam not to slaughter his son Ismail. I've seen in my own eyes many times people standing before these pillars where this Aqaba took place, the pledge, and they take, for example, their sandals. And they said, this is for the sin you made me do last week. This is for all the grief you gave me. And they throw all kinds of things on there, right? And they actually believe that shaitan is there. Shaitan is not there. In fact, sometimes shaitan is influencing them whilst they're pelting the pillars. That's how sad it is. But those are really the places in which the pledge took place. This lady came to Rasulullah and said to him, Ya Rasulullah, I want to give you bay'ah. How can I do it? I can't shake your hands. Later, in the Sulh of Hudaybiyah, the Prophet of Islam devised a method whereby the ladies placed their hands where? You all know. How did they give bay'ah to Rasulullah? In water. So there's a bowl of water, he placed his hand in it, and they placed their hands in it to pledge their allegiance. That's in the year 6 after Hijrah in the famous peace treaty of Hudaybiyah. However, this is now pre the Islamic government in Medina, and what happened was, the Prophet said to all the men that she saying, I am giving bay'ah verbally is enough. There's no need for anything else for her to do. But the men came, they shook the hands of the Prophet of Islam and said, if you come to Medina, we'll look after you and we will never abandon you. Now, of course, what happened was that very beautifully, Nusayba bint Ka'ab, when she came to Mecca to pledge, please understand this, she didn't come alone. She brought with her husband, Zayd bin Asim, and her 2 sons, Habib and Abdullah. So they came as a family. You know, this for me is a very important indication of a solid family that has the right foundations when it comes to their faith. Meaning what? Today our ulama say, at home, if you're not coming to mosque, establish the jama'ah salah together. Let the husband lead. For example, if for example they have sons who are baligh, then they should be behind the husband and then the mother. For instance, in Salatul Jama'ah at home, activities that are done collectively as a family unit are very important and enhance spirituality and strengthen faith. Number 1. Number 2, today, and I know it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's important that we address this issue. And my message primarily is to the Iraqi community here. Secondly, to the Afghani community, but the rest of the communities are okay, fairly, on this regard. Which is what? Ziyarah, that it's done towards the shrines of the Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam. In Iraq, Karbala, Najaf, Kazmiya, Samarra. The number 1 problem today we're finding, particularly with the Iraqi, Lebanese, the Arab community, is that they say, you know, I go for ziyarah, I take my family, but we'll go by ourselves. Why should I go with a group? I'll take my son and daughter to Karbala. Yalla, هذا الإمام الحسين. Yalla, ziyarat warith. Yalla, let's recite ziyarah. And the son and the daughter haven't got a clue what they're doing. They're just reciting for the sake of it. No historical analysis, no understanding of the Imams, Masjid al-Kufa, Masjid al-Sahla, an understanding of Wadi al-Salam, understanding of what happened, the Battle of Karbala, no lectures, no spirituality. A day only. I go to Najaf, Karbala 1 day, come back, go back to my family in Baghdad. Khalas. And it's unfortunate that it's happening. It's happening in different communities. My advice to my respected sisters and brothers, and that is, Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. My advice to my respected sisters and brothers is what? Is invest in ziyarah. Meaning what? There are many groups that are going. Invest in a ziyarah group that speaks the language of your children. Meaning what? That will explain things to them. You may not be able to explain the history of the shrine. You may not be able to explain what happened in Karbala. You may not be able to do it. Now, our children, when we take them to these places, they'll be bored. They'll be like, you know what? I don't know what this is all about, right? Especially our youth. Ziyara, arba'in, these kind of activities, ideally. I know you might say, Alhamdulillah, I'm okay. I've been to Iraq 50 times. MashaAllah. I pray for you. No problem. But those of us who have youngsters, ensure that you do these collective family activities with the objective to raising them to understand what they're doing, to understand where they're visiting. Nusayba, this great lady, had another brilliant merit. She waited for the Prophet of Islam to come. But one thing that is written in history, that is a moment of glorious, glorious merit for her, is that when Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam reached Medina with the Prophet, was he married or not? Was he married? Yes? No, he wasn't married. Remember, he got married in the second year after Hijrah. Amir al-Mu'mineen is still single. Now, Amir al-Mu'mineen reaches, he's bringing with him 3 Fatimas. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, his mother Fatima bint Asad, and Fatima bint al-Hamza or bint al-Zubayr. When he brings with him those 3, later he meets the Prophet in Quba, and then they build this mosque, Masjid al-Quba, awwalu masjid, the first mosque to be built in Islam. Then they move towards Medina. When they reach Medina, the Prophet of Islam stays in the house of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh, because the mosque is now being built and the house is being built. Where does Imam Ali alayhi salam stay? The riwayat say, Imam stayed in the house of Nusayba. Nusayba said to Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Ali, you must stay in my house. That for me is an indication of the wilaya of this lady. That from the beginning, she had her determination to be where? To be aligned with the Ahl al-Bayt alayhum as-salam, to support the Ahl al-Bayt alayhum as-salam. Therefore, Amir al-Mu'mineen would stay in the house of Nusayba according to riwayat all the way until he got married. That she would welcome him, and for him it was like his home. But one thing that we must understand about this lady is her heroism and her bravery when it came to the Battle of Uhud. Please focus on this, because this is what made Nusayba who she was. This lady who was known as Imara, because her son, her oldest son, was called Imara, lost her husband before the Battle of Badr. He died, Battle of Uhud, he died naturally. She had 5 sons, and the approach towards the Battle of Uhud was that full of optimism. The Muslims had defeated the polytheists in Badr. We gave a full description about Badr last week. And now they're going towards Uhud, perhaps some of them with a touch of arrogance, thinking that already they're going to be victorious. We all know what happened in Uhud, however. Most of the time we hear that the Muslims lost in Uhud, but in reality they had already won if it wasn't for the action of some. So there was a man by the name of Talha ibn Abi Talha, not the Talha and Zubayr Talha. This is another person. Talha ibn Abi Talha had a number of sons. When he first emerged in the Battle of Uhud, he said to the army of Muslims, Hal min mubariz. Is there anyone who will fight me? Of course, Amir al-Mu'mineen had the flag. The Prophet of Islam was giving him the standard. He was the standard bearer. Hamilur raya. So he comes forward. He kills Talha. Amir al-Mu'mineen kills Talha. Well, he injures him and then he dies. The son of Talha comes. He also is killed by Imam Ali alayhi salam. A number of others, they come forward who are relatives, either sons of Talha or other relatives. Imam Ali finishes them off. Now the Muslims were buoyant with this victory. They all say Allahu Akbar. There is immediately the battle. The battle starts. Muslims are already advancing. They are defeating the enemies despite their numerical disadvantage. Yet, of course, we all know what happened. And those who've been to that site have seen the small hill where the Prophet of Islam placed 50 of the archers and said, never come down unless I tell you to do so. And these 50 archers, 10 of them obeyed Rasulullah. And unfortunately, 40 saw the booties of war and they rushed towards it, leaving those 10 exposed. Khalid ibn Walid, who was with the enemies, immediately goes round, attacks those 10, kills them, and attacks the Muslims from behind. And that's where the problem started. That's why, unfortunately, 70 of the Muslims were martyred, including Hamza, Sayyid al-Shuhada ibn Abdul Muttalib, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, Mus'ab ibn Umair, and a number of others. Now, Nusayba, she was there to provide water and as a nurse. So she wasn't there to fight. All of a sudden, she saw the attack of the army of Khalid and the non-Muslims attacking Muslims from behind. And she saw the Prophet of Islam with Amir al-Mu'mineen. Of course, Ali ibn Abi Talib was the main defender of the Prophet. And we are told in the narrations when Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen had 40 according to riwayat, stab wounds in his body after Uhud. How many? 40. And Jibreel would say to Rasulullah and would say, Ya Muhammad, inna hadhihi al-muwasat. Ya Rasulullah, this is exactly what it is for somebody to try and sacrifice their life. Yes, this is true sacrifice. لَقَدْ عَجَبَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ مِنْ مُوَاسَاةِ هَذَا الْفَتَى. Jibreel says, Malaika are surprised by how much this man is so brave. فَقَالَ النَّبِيُّ. The Prophet said, وَمَا يَمْنَعُهُ وَهُوَ مِنِّي وَأَنَا مِنْهُ. Of course, I am from him and he is from me. Yes? This is in the battlefield. And the Prophet, by the way, don't get this image where he's hiding and Imam Ali is fighting. The Prophet of Islam was the most courageous human being, no doubt, and the best fighter. Sometimes we give this image that, he is hiding and everyone else is protecting him. Amir al-Mu'mineen says that when the battle intensifies, لُذْنَا بِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ. When there were so many enemies, we would go behind the Prophet. That's how the Prophet of Islam's bravery was. Now, what happened in that moment? فَقَالَ جِبْرَائِيلُ وَأَنَا مِنْكُمَا. The Prophet says, هو مني وأنا من ثم سمع مناد من السماء لا فتى إلا علي ولا سيف إلا ذو الفقار. This was announced, yes, or their cries could be heard in the heavens. Now, at that moment, Nusayba, what did she do? She saw that this particular situation was going to get worse. What did she do? Immediately, she seized the initiative. She picked up a sword and began to fight. She fought so brilliantly on the day of Uhud. She saw her son Imara running away. There are some prominent Sahaba who ran away. Very well-known Sahaba who today are revered by over 1 billion Muslims who ran away for 3 days. They were not to be seen. Don't be surprised, because that's when the moment of weakness of Iman and Nifaq emerges. Yes? Imara, the son of Nusayba, also started to run away. People started, because imagine, they're trying to fight the enemy from ahead, but now they're being attacked from behind. So he started to run away. Immediately she screamed at him and said, come back and fight. He came back, he fought. Whilst she was fighting, he was fighting next to her, they killed him. So she saw her own son being martyred in the battle of Uhud. But her main concern was Rasulullah. She stood next to the Holy Prophet, and it is narrated that the Holy Prophet, Rasul al-A'zam Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he said, مَا الْتَفَتْتُ يَمِينًا وَلَا شِمَالًا يَوْمَ أُحُدْ إِلَّا رَأَيْتُهَا تُقَاتِلْ دُونِي. He says, I never looked right and left on the day of Uhud, except that I saw Nusayba fighting. Can you imagine a lady with such courage? Not a surprise, yes? Not a surprise at all. She fights so courageously and she was willing to sacrifice her life. And that's why later there was an incident known as Hamra al-Asad. Please understand history, because these are moments we never understand. Hamra al-Asad is what? When the Muslims retracted to a mountain and they saw their dead, the Prophet of Islam, Amir al-Mu'mineen, wounded, Nusayba, wounded heavily. These few who remained with the Prophet, they retracted to a mountain close to Uhud. Abu Sufyan and the arrogant Quraysh leaders came, buoyant with their victory. His wife Hind goes and carves open the body of Hamza, takes out his liver, chews his liver, makes from his ears an earring, a necklace, and dismembers the body of Hamza. What happened? What happened? And today, mashallah, you have some of our sisters in the Muslim world, they call themselves Hind. Yani, what role model are you naming your daughter at? Yes? Anyway, so Abu Sufyan looks at the Prophet and says, Ya Muhammad, an-nasru lana wa la nasru lakum. Today, victory is ours, and you don't have a victory. The Prophet asked someone to scream back from the mountain, Allahu mawlana wa la mawla lakum. Allah is with us, but He's not with you. Yes? You think that you have defeated us, you have not. But then someone comes to Abu Sufyan and says, whilst the Muslims are retracting back to Medina, why are you allowing them to live? Let's finish them off. They've got people who are injured. They've got people who are weak, demoralized. This is your moment. Finish Islam. Kill Muhammad. End the story. He said, very well. That sounds really good. Jibreel comes towards what? Comes towards the Holy Prophet and says to him, they are marching to an area you're staying known as Hamra al-Asad, which is just outside Medina, on the way towards Uhud. He says to him that the army is approaching and they want to fight you. The Prophet of Islam looked at the Muslims and said, this is what's happening. What do you want to do? Those who were injured, people like Nusayba, Ali ibn Abi Talib, others, they were bleeding. You know, at that time, there's no hospitals. There's no anesthetic. Yes? They're severely in a bad state. They're injured. They picked up the sword and said, Ya Rasulullah, this is the moment of shahada. Khalas, we'll fight. So, these people around Rasulullah were not demoralized. Allah praised them in the Holy Quran, including Nusayba. الَّذِينَ قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسِ إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَاخْشَوْهُمْ فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. People came to them and said, what are you doing? You're going to lose. You're going to die. That scaremongering of those people made those individuals like Nusayba even more determined. They were now more passionate. They stood up and said, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. Khalas, Allah is with us. What else can happen? We've got to die defending Rasulullah. When Abu Sufyan heard that the Muslims are ready to fight, he said, nah, forget it. Coward, of course. He said, forget it. I'm not going to, I have my victory. I'm not going to. So he retracted. But if they hadn't stood up, if they hadn't said, we will fight, then Islam would have finished. Then the Prophet of Islam would have been killed. Of course, it was part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan that the Prophet would be defended. But it was those individuals whose determination was there for everyone to see, including Nusayba, who indeed demonstrated this. And of course, in the year 10 after Hijrah, what happened was there was a man by the name of the famous Musaylama al-Kadhab, the liar Musaylama. This Musaylama, he came with his people to see the Prophet of Islam. His tribe embraced the religion of Islam, but he refused. He said, I'm also a prophet. I need to be followed. He said, I have a Quran, I have a book from God. Yes? They said to him, what is your ayat, what is your Quran? He said, I'll tell you. Al-fil wal-fil وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْفِيلُ لَهُ خُرْطُومٌ طَوِيلٌ. He started reading this. He said, my Quran is this, the elephant and the elephant. And shall I tell you about the elephant? It has a huge trunk. That was his Quran. That was his, so to speak, proof. But he wrote a letter to the Prophet. Subhanallah, some people you think, are you really up there? Are you okay? But he wrote a letter to the Prophet and he said to the Prophet, listen to the letter. He said, Min Musaylama Rasulillah ila Muhammadin Rasulillah. He said, I am Rasulullah, you are also Rasulullah. So let's share the prophethood. Right? The Holy Prophet, subhanallah, look at not only akhlaq, but the power of Rasulullah. He writes to him, he says to him, Min Muhammedin Rasulillah ila Musaylama al-Kadhab. You are a liar, but I am Rasulullah. Then he says, Assalamu ala man ittaba al-huda. Amma ba'd. أن الأرض لله يورثها من يشاء من عباده والعاقبة للمتقين. It's Allah who chooses the prophets, not you. You can't say that you are a prophet. Yes. Interestingly, they came to Musaylama and said, look, the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, has miracles. What's your miracle? He said, I'll show you. What do you need me to do? They said, our youth in our tribe haven't got much hair. So can you rub your hands on their foreheads and make their hair grow? He said, very easy. And then Riwayat say, he bought the kids, every kid he touched, they lost all their hair and became bald. Every kid, right? They said to him, okay, maybe there is a problem in the system, failure. Okay, so maybe you need to do something else. He said to them, what do you want me to do? They said, our lakes are drying up. We have drought. So increase it. He said, very well. So he placed his hand in the lakes. Every lake he placed his hand, it dried up completely. The water went completely. Yes? So people saw. Now, what happened to this particular individual? The Prophet, this letter that he wrote to Musaylama, he gave it to the son of Nusayba by the name of Habib. He said to him, here, take it, go and give it to this Musaylama al-Kadhab, the liar. So Habib, who is the son of Nusayba, goes. He gives it to whom? He gives it to Musaylama. Musaylama said, how dare he call me Kadhab? I will kill you. So he killed Habib. he killed the son of Nusayba. Now this is important. He was martyred. After the sad demise of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, the Muslims decided to attack Musaylama. So there was an army that was what? That was sent to fight Musaylama al-Kadhab. This lady, Nusayba, decided to go with the army and fight. Subhanallah, a warrior, a real warrior. She said, I will avenge the blood of my son. So she went towards this man Musaylama and his people, the fake, those who are following this fake, so to speak, prophet. She was fighting. She said, but I want to kill Musaylama myself. Look at the courage. Look at the bravery that this lady had. But before she would get to him, one of her other sons killed Musaylama. So the person who killed Musaylama was one of the other sons of this lady, Nusayba bint Ka'ab, and that's why she saw that the justice of Allah and revenge had been established regarding this. But even on that day, I saw the riwayah that says she had 18 stab wounds in her body, that she was a fighter. Now sometimes, you hear these and you say, subhanallah, we have these glorious examples of ladies. It is not wajib upon them without a shadow of a doubt to fight in the battlefield. And that's not what the religion of Islam says. But she would be an individual specifically in Uhud who rose to the occasion when it comes to the defense of the religion of Islam. Yes, there isn't much about her life afterwards. History sometimes is quiet about ladies. Unfortunately, the biography of many of our female personalities in Islam is incomplete. We don't have information because usually they're not out there for the historians to see them. But her life is sufficient for us to conclude that she was outstanding in support of the religion of Islam, that she would be an individual who honored and loved the Ahl al-Bayt, such as Amir al-Mu'mineen, peace and blessings be upon him, and she would work hard to what? To support the cause of the religion of Islam. And that's indeed the lesson that we would take, my dear sisters and brothers, that sometimes, yes, it may not be in our position to do something, but we need to rise to that occasion. If it means we defend the integrity and the principles of the religion of Islam, then so be it. That needs to happen. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will indeed honor us, protect us, and grant us reward in this world and akhirah. And I hope we can indeed utilize this opportunity to learn and to investigate and to illuminate our hearts with the biographies of great ladies in Islam, people who are truly role models and established great legacies for you and I to follow in their footsteps. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.